Honda's CBR 650R was one of the surprises of 2019. For a start off, it had quite big shoes to fill in the form of the fairly iconic CBR 600RR. That supersports machine with its scalpel-like handling was loved by racers and road riders alike. Thankfully, the drop in CC and BHP compared to the CBR 600 didn't do the CBR 650 a misservice. It wasn't lacking in performance, thrills or ability, and it had more comfort than its sportier sibling. Here's our full review from Almeria in Spain.
Hi folks, Toad Hancock's here with VISORDOWN'S, and we are at the launch of Honda's new sports bike, so the CBR 650R. This bike is looking to be in dealers next month, and it is priced at 77,299, and it is kind of, Honda are hoping that people will look at it as the new CBR 600RR, so it's kind of, it's as usable as the old CB 650F, but it's got some more sort of sporty connotations. It's not a full fat super sport bike. We've got about 100 brake horsepower on tap, but it's got all the cycle parts. I mean, the suspension, the front end on this thing is absolutely phenomenal. It's got shower, non-adjustable front forks. For me and my size and my weight, they were absolutely perfect on the roads that we're riding on today. There's very little dive. You can trail brake right up to the apex of a corner, and it gives you very little complaint. It's pretty comfy as well. For a sports bike, this is something that you could buy and you could use every day. You could do a multitude of things with it, and you know, even go touring on it if you wanted to. And that's why I think it's probably a little bit better than a straight CBR 600RR replacement, because it's more usable for me. We rode it today for probably a good 3 or 4 hours, and you know, it is a bit wristy, but there was no kind of backache. My knees were fine, my wrists, they're absolutely fine now. So yeah, it's a really, really usable tool. We've got this one set up with Dunlop, I think the Road Smart tyres that it's got on it, and the only real criticism that I would have of it is that when they're cold they offer no grip whatsoever, and even today where it was, you know, 10 to 17 degrees from the mountain to the coast, it took a lot of work to get any heat in them, and until there is heat in them they are a little bit skittish. This bike has also got a proper functioning ram air, so the air scoops on here, which previously were kind of just there for show. These ram air scoops do actually give the bike a 5% uplift at high speed. So if you're going over 120, 130 miles an hour on it, which it will do, the actual ram air induction on the front there will actually get you a 5% uplift in the BHP. Yeah, I've really enjoyed riding it today. I'm not a sports bike fan, so it takes a lot for me to warm towards a sports bike. I prefer nakeds or tourers or something that's a bit more upright. But this thing is, you know, phenomenally quick, and I've ridden sports bike 1000s and 600s, and you know, I don't think I'd have been any quicker on the roads that we rode today on anything else. This is a really, really good tool if you're looking for a properly usable sports bike.
With minor tweaks to the R1 for this year, it's quite hard to distinguish the old model from the new. Beneath the skin though, the bike has been heavily reworked, and not just to get past the latest round of Euro 5 regulations. It's also been to improve combustion and rideability and reliability. We were at the press launch at Jerez to give it a try out.
Hi folks, Toad here with VISORDOWN'S in very sunny and ridiculously hot Jerez de la Frontera, and we are here for 2 bikes. So we've been at the 2020 model launch for the new R1 and the R1M, R1M, R1, VISORDOWN viewers. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and I'll do a voiceover for all the specs and everything else, because to be honest with you, it's over 30 degrees, I've been on track all day and I am absolutely knackered. So starting with the R1, this is going to be in dealership sort of second week of October in the UK, and the on-the-road price of this is 16,799. The engine is standard sort of R1 fare. It's pushing out about 200 horsepower. This has got the manually adjustable KYB shocks. And we were riding this 3 sessions this morning on the standard Bridgestone road tyres. Not ridden the standard R1 on track before. I've ridden the R1M on track about 4 weeks ago at the Silverstone Masterclass. And this is very good. It's very capable. Although it is quite lively, I think is the way that I'd describe it. It does like to move around quite a lot, and I think that's mainly to do with the tyres more than anything. It's got a revised intake injector as well, so the injectors previously sort of shot across the intake, and now the injectors sort of shoot directly down the intake and into the engine, so that's supposed to prevent the fuel in the air from sort of entering any kind of turbulence on the way into the engine. We've got 3, so new for this year, you've got two modes for cornering ABS, you've got 3 engine modes. And yeah, I did enjoy it, but I didn't like the way that it was a little bit flighty and a little bit, let's say, lively on track this morning. But the bike that I was really, really impressed with was this, the R1M. Now, the reason that I went to Silverstone the other week was to get a feel for the R1M on track, the outgoing model, so that I've got a sort of a starting point to work from when we came to the launch. And there is a big jump, there is a big leap. This new R1 is a lot more stable than the outgoing model. The suspension is just tuned beautifully. There's a few little ripples here at Jerez, especially at the end of the back straight into quite a tight right-handed hairpin. And it could unsettle this bike a little bit over the bumps, and you get the ABS cutting in, but this thing just completely levels it out. So let's have a little look at some riding footage. I'll put a voiceover of all the detailed changes to the engine, suspension, and everything else over that. Enjoy.
So it's easy to think that most of the changes within the R1 and the R1M are purely to meet Euro 5 regulations, but actually there is a little bit more than that. The injector spray angle is probably the biggest news within the engine, along with the relocation of the throttle valves and reducing the intake volume. And they've actually made the frontal M1 inspired air intake at the front of the bike a little bit smaller. And some of it is to do with Euro 5 and some of it is to do with rideability and the torque delivery, which have been smoothed out a little bit. Not that it was bad before, but they've just kind of made it a little bit more accurate. And the whole bike, the engine in total, feels torquier low down, and it doesn't quite feel as peaky at the top end either. Altogether, it's still unmistakably an R1 with that MotoGP style exhaust note that you get. It's still very, very rideable. Probably more suited to road riding now with the increase in torque, whereas racers normally want something that's a little bit more peaky, but still such a wonderful little unit to use. And the fact that they've done that without losing any BHP and making it Euro 5 is just it's brilliant for me. I think that's absolutely excellent.
£21,199 for the R1M, and the standard R1 is coming up at £16,799. Both bikes are a hell of a lot of machine for the money. If you want a Yamaha sports bike in your garage and you want 1000cc and you do a lot of road riding and barely any track riding, this will be ideal. It will be a bit cheaper to insure, it's cheaper to buy, and you still won't be able to get to the limit of what this bike can do on the road, I don't think anyway. If you ride on the road and you do a lot of track days, that is the machine that you need to go out and buy, because it is just riding these two today back to back, it was just night and day the difference. Fair enough, this is on slicks, this is on road tyres, and that's got electronic suspension, but for the extra 4 or 5 grand on top of the price of the R1, if you're going to be track riding, that is the one to get. I've been Toad, I'm going to go to the bar and get a beer. Thank you very much for watching Visor Down. There'll be a full review going up there very soon. Cheers folks.
Riding the V4R Panigale from Ducati on the road was somewhat of a watershed moment. Then getting to take the thing to Bruntingthorpe Proving Ground was almost a religious experience. The bike is as hard-edged on track as its winged styling suggests, but it only bites when you want it to. Out on the road, it's actually fairly tractable and easy to ride. Here's what it's like to live with for 2 weeks.
Hi folks, Toad Hancock's here with VISORDOWN.com, and this is Ducati's Panigale V4R. This is the pinnacle of the superbike family with Ducati, and here are 5 fast facts that make this probably the most special bike that we've ever ridden. Fast fact number 1. You can't talk about the V4R without talking about wings. These things aren't there just for show. These actually generate downforce, and at about 180 miles an hour they're putting the same amount of force on the front end as having one Kylie Minogue sat on the headstock. That's over 50 kilograms of downforce at 180 miles an hour. Fast fact number 2. The fairing on this thing is completely redesigned over the original V4 and the V4S. It's actually wider, about 2 inches on each side, which is counterintuitive because you'd think for a race bike the narrower it is the faster it's going to go through the air. But what Ducati found out was that if they made the fairing wider, it pushed the air around the outside of the rider's legs and actually make the bike much more aerodynamic. Fast fact number 3. Louvres. These aren't just for show, these are actually there to suck the hot air out from inside the fairing. So as the cool air hits the oil cooler and the radiator, it gets slowed down. And because the air rushing over the outside of the fairing is travelling so much faster, it actually causes a bit of a vacuum and physically pulls the air out from under the fairing. All of that is just to keep the bike cool when you're up to speed. Fast fact number 4, the engine on this thing. So it's a 999cc, which is to homologate the bike for World Superbike and British Superbike. That's no secret. How they did it is quite interesting. So they kept the bore of the bike exactly the same, but they've shortened the stroke of each of the cylinders by 5.1 millimeters. So what they've created is a 1000cc or a 999cc, but an ultra high revving engine. I mean, this thing revs out at sort of 16,500 RPM, and it's got 2 little power bands, 2 distinct power bands that you go through as you're riding it. The first one comes in at about 8,000 RPM, which is when the bike's just starting to get into its stride and it really begins to take off and pull really hard. And then as you hit 11,000 RPM, the thing goes nuts. It wrenches your arms, tries to wrench your arms off the handlebars, and it's just got a second burst of acceleration, which is just mind-blowing. Before you know it, you've hit the red line and it's time to hook another gear. It is an absolute piece of artwork. And the final fast fact that makes this probably one of the most special bikes we've ever ridden is its history in World Superbike. In its first season of competition, straight out of the box, so the Panigale V2 takes over from where the 959 Panigale left off. For 2020, it's got a new look that echoes the bigger, faster and more expensive Panigale V4. We sent Harry Mackenzie to Ereth to try the new bike out.
Hi guys and girls, Harry Mackenzie from VISORDOWN, hope you're all doing well. So today I'm at the launch of the Panigale V2. Now this bike was actually launched in this Rimini about 3 weeks ago, just before EICMA. And it's kicking up quite a bit of a storm, and I'm so glad that we at VISORDOWN managed to get our hands on it. So today we've been going around Ereth MotoGP circuit, and what a breathtaking place to actually test this bike out and fully try and unleash its potential. Not that I really came close. But before I kick things off, going into the engine, suspension and stuff like that, I think we've got to address what's new on this bike. See, the actual core of this bike, which is that Super Quattro engine, is based off the 959 Panigale, which was around about 2015 or 2014 that was released. So it's a sort of evolution of that bike, if you will. First thing you can't miss is obviously the new face, pretty much stolen straight off the V4, but a little bit thinner and without the aero winglets, which people either love or hate. What else is new? Well, they've also pinched the electronics package off the V4 as well. So it's got a 6-axis IMU, a 4.3-inch TFT dash. The suspension's been slightly tweaked by a couple of millimeters, nothing crazy, but it's enough to kind of shift the weight bias and stuff like this slightly more forward. The 959 didn't actually have a down quick shifter as well, but this machine does because it's linked to the 6-axis IMU. Along with daytime running lights, new air scoops, slightly modified rear end. You get the big Panigale sort of bigger bike V4 special single-sided swing arm. And again, the 959 had a double-sided swing arm. So those are really the key differences. Comfort seat, which is actually quite comfortable after razzing it around the ref today, but that's slightly longer, and that's really it. So that's pretty much all the key differences out of the way. So as I say, the core of this bike is that Super Quadro engine. So it's actually a 955cc V-twin. It's kicking out 155 brake horsepower, so that's 5 more than the last model. And it's kicking out 2 Nm worth of torque. Now, whether you're going to feel that or not, probably not on the road, to be honest. I mean, on the track you can feel it's got a little bit more top end. It's got just that little bit more push and aggression when you crack the throttle. Still a little bit boggy low down, but once you get it singing, which is a bit odd, counterintuitive for a V-twin, once you get it singing, revving through the rev range, it's a delight. The engine's an absolute delight. Gearbox is ultra smooth. Even with a few shoddy shifts from my end, it still managed to go in gear and actually get me through to the corner. So even with all that increased power, believe it or not, it's actually more eco-friendly. So Ducati have somehow managed to kick out a little bit more power and make it Euro 5 compliant, which is the done thing in 2020, right? So the reality is, this bike is fitting into middleweight, light middleweight, kind of super sport class. Who's going to buy it? Well, someone that perhaps doesn't want to bash out, you know, 20 plus K on a V4 or super bike or something like this. This bike's 15 grand. It's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination compared to its competition. You know, probably one of the closest things to this would probably be a Ninja ZX6R in terms of handling. Both these bikes handle beautifully. Is it worth the 15K? That's up to whoever's going to spend it. Do you know what I mean? Is it better than the 959? As I say, I've ridden the 959. I would have to say yes, 100%. Whatever the tweaks have been done, you know, the suspension tweaks, it has just drastically improved the handling of this bike. The slight difference in weight distribution has really made a huge effect. So yeah, perhaps anyone that's got a 959, this might be a nice little upgrade that you're expecting. Obviously, done away with the LCD dash, jumped or chucked in a banging electronics unit from the straight from the 21st century, and yeah, very impressed. As I say, I'm trying to just hold down my excitement a bit because I've got a little bit of adrenaline pumping through the veins, but yeah, I think that's all I've got to say on that. So thanks for your time. I've been Harry McKenzie, Visor Down. Ciao.
Kawasaki's Ninja H2 is probably the biggest poster bike of the last 5 years. Everything about this machine just screams extreme. For this road test, we thought we'd keep it fairly real world with a 2-week living with road test and then some fast runs along the Bruntingthorpe Proving Ground. Check out the video.
Hi folks, Toad here with VISORDOWN'S, and we are at either the world's windiest place, the world's hottest place, or the world's wettest place, which is Bruntingthorpe. Today it's been windy but dry, which has been good because I've been riding this thing and you really wouldn't want to ride it around here in the wet. I have ridden it in the wet and it's a little bit scary. So what have we got? This is the 2019 Kawasaki H2. So it's updated over the previous version of the H2. It's got slightly more power. It's got some tweaked engine modes, and Kawasaki engine braking has been refined a little bit. It's also got uprated Brembo style Lima calipers on the front. The brakes on the old H2 were always renowned for being a little bit lacking in bite and feel, so they've sorted that with some proper top spec calipers on the front. This is £26,499, which sounds like a real lot of money for a motorcycle, but when you consider that this thing has got kind of the power to weight ratio that would outdo a Bugatti Veyron, it kind of sort of makes sense. If you want the pinnacle of going really fast on 2 wheels, there isn't really anything that can touch this in terms of getting you up to basically nearly 200 miles an hour. Into the engine. It is obviously a liquid cooled 4-cylinder engine, double overhead cam, 16 valve. The big news with the H2, everybody knows it, is the supercharger. This thing is putting out 230 bhp static, and with ram air induction going through the air intake on the front, that will rise up to 240 bhp. Torque is 141 newton meters at about 11,000 rpm, and all the numbers don't do any of that justice when you ride the thing, because it just takes off like nothing. The first time you ride this thing, you properly get to feel what 240 horsepower in a motorcycle is, and then you realise that you've probably only used about 75% of it. What can I say? It's kind of a watershed moment in motorcycling, the H2. It's almost like up there with the sort of the Ducati Veyron of the motorcycle world. And to be able just to ride it and have it and just get on it and jump on it and ride it whenever I want has just been absolutely awesome, really. I've loved every second of it. It's not without its faults. Comfort's not high on the agenda with a bike like this, but you know that when you get it, and if you want a comfier one, get the H2 SX, which is a more everyday H2, although they bill it as a sports tourer. I think it's more of an everyday H2. And yeah, it's a lot of bike, and it is an expensive bike, but I mean, if you want the fastest straight line, supercharged, 240 brake horsepower motorcycle, there is really only one place that you can go, and that's to Kawasaki. You can read a full review of this bike on VISORDOWN'S. Thank you very much for watching.
For this year, the S1000RR gets a fresh new look, revised electronics and a rather cool TFT dash. We were on the launch for this bike at Estoril. In fact, we sent Alan Dowds, but sadly the weather wasn't playing ball. We did though manage to spend a few fast and frantic days with the bike as we headed to the BMW Motorrad event in Garmisch. The punchy engine with over 200 horsepower and 85 foot-pound of torque is supremely quick on the Alpine passes. The addition of cruise control is a welcome addition, and it's definitely one that other manufacturers should take note of. Really, the only negative that I could find with this bike is that the seat is absolutely rock hard. Taking its big bore cues from the 1100 Tuono, the Aprilia RS-V4 factory is like a two-fingered salute from the Noelle factory to the boys and girls from the Borgo Panigale. Pushing 217 Italian stallions out of its pipe, the RS-V4 has an extra injector per cylinder, increased compression ratio and revised valve timing over the 1100 Tuono. All of that is to get the maximum amount of top-end power that it can. Out on the flowing tarmac of Mugello, Alan Dowds was impressed with the bike's mid-range torque, managing to take most of the corners he'd usually ride in second gear in third on Aprilia's torque-heavy beastie. Away from the engine, the Aprilia's trick chassis and tyre setup also left Al astonished, going as far to say the Pirelli Supercoursers are giving heroic levels of grip, while the Öhlins premium track suspension is giving a magic carpet speck of wheel control. Magic carpet and 200 horsepower superbike, not really two phrases that go together very often.